Greetings, I am the Lion Clan Chief. Welcome to the Lion Clan. Now, in this video, we're going to cover the trade interactions between Eastern Africa and Southern Africa going back into antiquity. Now, before recently, I used to assume that my ancestors in Southern Africa, in Zimbabwe, were isolated because of how far south we were from every other culture. But after doing this research, I now know that that was totally nonsense. We did have interactions with fellow Africans and also people from outside of Africa. Now, going back to the 6th century, around the year 547 AD, an Alexandrian merchant called Cosmas mentions that the Axumite kings used to send expeditions south, which took 6 months to go and return, in order to barter for gold. In return, they would trade salt, oxen, and iron and other goods. Now, he mentions that this trade was a silent trade. So when they came into contact into the region, they would light a fire, then the people would come, then they would barter, leave their goods there, then just silent trading. Apparently it used to take around a week until all the goods were sold, and then they would make their way back to Aksum. Now, this man mentions that this land was called Sassos, and it was known for its gold, and the Axumite kings used to send people on these expeditions every 2 to 3 years. Now, Sassos seems to be in modern day Zimbabwe and around that region, because the region of Zimbabwe and my ancestors were known for trading a lot of gold in the medieval period, and it looks like before this as well. Now, in archaeology, this period in Zimbabwe is known as the Gokomere culture. It appears that the Gokomere culture was the ancestral culture of the people who would go on to build Great Zimbabwe, who are my ancestors. So the ancestors of the Shona, the Karanga, the Kalanga, the Venda, potentially the Sena, the Barwe, people in the whole region that are associated with the culture that is known as the Great Zimbabwe culture. So it looks like 5 centuries after this continued for centuries. It wasn't just an isolated movement between the East African Ethiopians and my people. Now, Arabs began to trade with Africans and began to write about what they were seeing. So they mentioned the port city of Sofala, which was an ancient port in the 10th century AD. Now, the port of Sofala was the chief port which was used by my ancestors to trade with the Swahili and other outside people like the Indians, Chinese, even Portuguese later on, and the Persians. They even gave it the nickname Golden Sofala in Arabic, so there was a lot of gold going through there, and I think my ancestors were pretty wealthy. they had so much gold, they just sold a lot of it. Now, an Arab historian called Al-Masedi in the 10th century mentions that there was an Abyssinian community in Sofala. So, like I'm saying, the trade with the Axumites and the successor states of Aksum, it looks like it didn't just stop, it continued, and they started going, instead of through the land, they started going through sea with the port cities that they had to reach. So to reach Sofala, it was kind of difficult, so they had to interact with other Swahili ports, like for example Kilwa Kiswani, which because of this kind of gained a monopoly, if that makes sense. So because they had to stop through Kilwa put like a tariff, and they needed payments to be made. Then when the people went back to Sofala to get the gold which my ancestors were trading, and went back to Kilwa, the Kilwa Sultan was like, hey, okay, you've got that gold, you're gonna transfer, you're gonna go again, you're gonna need to pay me. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of what is it called, piracy and smuggling, but yeah, man, the Swahilis had it on point, and the Somalis as well. The same author wrote about the land called Zanj. Now, the Zanj, based on what I can see on the research, seem to be the East African Bantu people who were the ancestors of the Swahili. Now, these people were also mentioned by the Alexandrian merchant that I mentioned. He calls it the land of Zinjum. And further down south, going towards Sassos, which is of course in the Zimbabwe area, that sea was called the Ocean of Zinjion. So at some point, a part of the modern ocean of the Indian Ocean was known as Zanj. Now, Zinjiom is just Latinized version of the word Zanj. The word Zanzibar comes from the same Zanj. Yes, Azania as well, I believe, is tied to the name Zanj. So Azania, when they say Azania is xenophobic and so on, it's actually more so in Eastern Africa rather than in South Africa, but I don't know how it became South Africa. So it appears through the port of Sofala and through a secondary port which was further south in Mozambique called Chiburene Port, there was a lot of contact with the outside world and also with other Africans like the Swahili. So there was a lot of trade interactions, and also I believe the Malagasy people, who are Polynesians who settled in Madagascar, were coming to East Africa as well to trade with my ancestors, and also some of them tried to invade according to some historical accounts but were pushed back. And I will cover some of the interactions that the Malagasy people and the Swahili had. They were kind of interesting, like some invasions, some piracy, some Viking stuff, you know what I mean? But yeah, I'll cover that in a following video. So it just goes to show where there's gold, people will go. They knew there was a lot of resources there. They said, okay, we're coming. And it looks like my ancestors and the ancestors of people I'm related to, various ethnic groups, took advantage of that, and they were very wealthy. So yeah, Africans did have interactions with each other. And I've heard also that at some point when the trade relations became stronger, that my ancestors sent expeditions to Ethiopia as well to trade with them, to interact with them. But yeah, more needs to be researched into that. I'm not quite sure. Apparently this was given in a speech by a Zimbabwean politician, so I can't confirm that. What is his source, you know? But it's possible. It is possible, because we did also send expeditions to other parts of Africa. I believe we traded with the Bakongo in further west, so it is possible. Anyway, hopefully you've learned something new. So I've covered so far the trade interactions between East Africa and West Africa, and also the East and Southern Africa. So there's a lot that was happening. So just keep in mind, it wasn't just the Abyssinians, the Ethiopians and Axumites. The Somalis as well were involved in this trade, as well as the Swahili people, or the ancestors of the Swahili, known as the Zanj, with my ancestors, and other regions of Africa. So Africa was not isolated. All these cultures that you see, they weren't all in isolation. So of course some were, but many of them were not. They had contact and trade relations, trading various goods and stuff. So I believe more research does need to be done to see the type of artifacts, the material cultures that they were exchanging, you know, the knowledge that they were exchanging. It is very interesting to me. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and yeah, give me your feedback. Let me know how it's going, if you're enjoying these videos. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. And if you have any subjects that you would like me to cover and to research, I'll look into that as well. Feel free. Yes, so thank you for watching. Yes, I'm your chief. Thank you. Bye bye.